Hello and welcome to One Take. I'm Dale Kirshner. Today I'm talking with Betsy Niemeier, who's co-owner and president of M&N Structures. Her company is a structural steel fabrication business that focuses on delivering architecturally designed steel products for the commercial industries. And they have a really unique take on this because they look at it from the perspective of kind of the architectural aspects versus other companies that sometimes come in and do more of the steel fabrication, and then people have to kind of adjust to that. Betsy, welcome to One Take.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And did I describe your business well enough? I mean, I know your husband, Kevin, founded this back in 1991, and he came at it from the standpoint of being a structural engineer. And when you and I talked previously, there seems to be a little bit of a unique value proposition that you bring to the marketplace because of that.
Yes, we started in something called design build, which is we don't just fabricate what's on the page, but Kevin actually designed the warehouses and then we provided the steel. And there was value in that for several reasons. One, he understood what it takes to make a building. He didn't design members that didn't exist or didn't work or didn't make sense. It helped us with streamlining our business where we don't have 100 different connections, we have one, or 100 different sizes of beams, we have 2 or 3. So you get economies of scale, you get less margin for error, and it was new to the marketplace, so a lot of people didn't understand it. But that's how we did it. But you can't survive on that alone. So we actually became morphed into a structural steel company. It's not necessarily architectural. It's on the structural side and on the design engineering side, but it's just a little more creative, a little more working with the owner or the general contractor to be more collaborative, I guess is the right word, instead of just reading what's on the page, delivering what they get, and what they get is what they get. We try to become a partner. And that's actually our goal, is to work with more general contractors that will work with us on a collaborative basis.
Sure. Now, if I remember correctly, Kevin started this in the garage, basically. And yeah. How big are you today? What do you have for annual sales approximately, and how many employees?
Our annual sales are mid-teens, 14 to 16 million. We've got 20 employees, and we're in a 30,000 square foot fabrication shop, and we're outgrowing it. So
that's great. Now, on the outside, I've read in recent years about steel prices and trade wars and things of that nature. How has that affected your business, and where are you at today with the pressures of steel prices?
I've been in this business 30 years, and I've seen complicated pricing, for the better word, 3 times maybe. The first was when we were very young in the business, and it didn't affect us that much because we couldn't buy direct from the mills. We were at the mercy of the middlemen, the steel warehouses. So it didn't affect us that much. And then we had one in 18, I believe. No, probably 08 or 09. And we got clipped there pretty good. We learned our lesson because we had ordered materials and then the warehouse didn't receive them yet. So the warehouses increased our pricing, even though we had already ordered it. So we've learned. And then we're in one right now, price wars right now, but the most significant one was in 18 so far. And we've grown to a point where we have a lot of intel, a lot of people on our side, a lot of contacts where they keep us in the loop, and they'll tell us, steel's going up next week. And sometimes it affects us and sometimes it doesn't. In 18, it really affected us because the tube market, which is just steel tubes, hollow in the middle, they went up something like 40 to 50% in a month or two. And that was the year we had a lot of warehouses that we knew were coming up. And so we bought ahead, and we had something like, I don't know, over 1 million pounds of tubes in our yard. And Marty, who runs our yard, had them all separated out by jobs. And it took us all summer into the fall to deplete that stock. But we hedged. And we had a couple of hiccups, but overall we did fine. And we're in one now. And I'm not really sure why. Steel has gone up, tubes have gone up again, 60%. And now that we've kind of grown to a point where we're doing larger jobs, 500,000 pounds of steel, every penny means something, right? So we're doing the same. We're pre-buying, and we have to work with our customers to make sure that if we pre-buy, we can bill for it, because then you got the cash flow piece on the other side, right? So it's working. People trust us. Our vendors are great to work with. But also this time, for the first time, it's affected delivery too, because some of our vendors who supply our joists and deck, for example, normally a turnaround job is 12 weeks and they're out to 20 weeks. So right now we're looking at deliveries in May and June, and we're so used to kind of a 12-week cycle. So you get the job, you're delivering in 12 weeks, you get another one, and it just rolls like this. So it's going to be interesting to see how 2021 plays out in that respect. My gut says the prices will ease, but the intel says that they're not. So I'm not sure.
How do you buffer that? How do you, when it comes to knowing whether you can have your folks work on jobs and have people actually be able to work on jobs, let's say 2 months from now or 4 months from now. How do you deal with that right now in terms of keeping them ready and keeping them fired up, but you don't know for sure if everything's going to be ready in time?
It'll be, I'm not, can you rephrase the question?
Well, just in terms of having, you mentioned that the delivery time for steel is becoming more problematic. And so how do you make sure that the jobs can continue to move forward on the schedules that they're on when some of the delivery times are being delayed or becoming as unpredictable as what you're looking at?
Well, we set it up when we win the job. So if we win the job, they know they have to accept, the general contractor has to accept that it's out 18 weeks and not 12. That's a problem in educating our client base, because our customer base is used to 12 weeks. And so, for example, they know that they have to lock in their walls, wall panels early, because that's the way that the world has always worked. But they tend to wait till the last minute to lock in steel, and probably concrete, I'm not sure about that, but steel for sure, knowing that it's 12 weeks. And it's not going to work that way anymore. So we need to get the word out, and my team's working on that to make sure we change the headspace of our clients, so they know if they think there's a job coming in, April, and they're going to get steel, it's not happening. And so it's education. It's just a new wrinkle in the business that we haven't had before.
Yep. Yeah, and like you said, then just a matter of making sure everybody knows. And it sounds like you have some time before that's critically important, because these delays you're looking at are coming down the road, right? Or are you seeing them today?
We're seeing them today. For example, we booked 2 or 3 jobs in December that aren't going to deliver till May. But we worked through it all and just readjusted their expectations. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we're looking for job so if we hit April or May and we're out of work, we can't rely on something coming in 12 weeks. It's going to be 24 weeks. And by then we're towards the 3rd and 4th quarter of the year, right? So we have to plan more tightly to spread this out into the 4th quarter.
Yep.
So it's different.
I think that was what I was trying to get at with my previous question in terms of that buffer and how do you kind of deal with these changes. Yeah. Let's talk COVID-19, and we're in 2021. How did COVID-19 affect you in 2020, and how is it still affecting you today?
Well, the last 2 years we've been working on transition to my son and stepson. son-in-law, excuse me, and stepson, we've been working on becoming less of an entrepreneurial business and more of a professionally run business. Because Kevin and I are both entrepreneurs, so we just put our head down, work as hard as we can, and lift it up and see what happened. And as I transition out, that it can't be that case. So we've been using EOS, and we've been using someone to help us with the ownership transfer versus the management transfer, and we've come so far. And I was looking forward to seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and then COVID hit. And at first we were considered essential business. So, and we had work. So it's like, no big deal. But it has affected us more than I expected it to. And the first one's economically, because we need to pay attention. Margins were starting to tighten. Fear was in the marketplace. Other fabricators were a lot of ours, some of us, our business is negotiated, but a lot of it's hard bid. And our competitors were lowballing jobs and at negative margin if we priced it apples to apples. So our margins started to really squeeze in the second quarter and the third quarter to a point where it's like, we're not going to make this. They've widened now a little bit, but that was the first thing, just paying attention to every single penny and where it was going. And then our budget, we ended up cutting by maybe 15 to 20% on the expense side. We cut out all fat, every single piece of it, and we're adhering to it. So on our expense side, we had to watch that. On our selling side, on our margins, we really had to balance whether we just take work to keep our shop open, or we're careful on what we take, and how do we stay in our lane and not take a job that's just gonna either be so big that we make a hiccup, we're down the tubes, or if it's out of our lane, it's a fancy something, that doesn't make sense either. So that affected us. Overtime and PTO and trying to keep people engaged on the employee side was tough. We immediately sent our office home in March, and Jonathan, my son-in-law, he stayed in the office. So he's still there to be the glue between the shop and the office. We have a shop super, and he's there every day, and our shop guys have been working. I thought we had this. It was just like, we got this. We sent some gift cards in the summer. We had a rah-rah outside in the summer. I sent some more gift cards at Christmas, just trying to keep everyone know that we appreciate their hard work. But it's caused some tension in the shop anyway. And I think it's just understanding that everyone's got their own story. And when they leave the shop, they've got their own stressors at home. What I miss is the contact. They need to see the management there with them. And if I could, I would go out there often, but I can't. Not only because of COVID, but because my husband is ill. So Jonathan's doing that job. He's doing it beautifully. We talk every Tuesday for several hours. He checks in. COVID has definitely affected us, but in a different way than perhaps a restaurant that had to shut, or, we haven't had to lay people off, but we have had to really deal with employee disgruntlement, that kind of thing. And because we're a team, and I consider us a family, and I'm there a lot. I was there a lot, and just going out to the shop every day and checking how so-and-so's mom is, or so-and-so's dad is, or whatever, just being a friend and being there. It's really important that the upper management walk them through this. And I can't be there. John's doing a good job.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned EOS before, and what I appreciate about what you're talking about is that sometimes people will look at EOS and see the processes and how you just need to be very disciplined and follow these processes and everything works out fine. And yet even with EOS, you've had some pressure points and some challenges to work through with what you just described. When you think about it, and when I listen to what you're saying, how have you been able to communicate as effectively and as efficiently and as quickly as you've needed to, whether it's with having your sales folks make sure that they look at projects correctly, making sure that people only go after the right kinds of projects, making sure that people are okay with cutting out 10 to 15% of your budget. You mentioned you cut out all the fat, but a lot of times people like some of those things that have been cut out. So how have you dealt with it from a communication standpoint, beyond, Jonathan, being able to kind of be out there more with people when you can't? What have you done to cover those things?
Well, EOS, we're starting our third year with EOS, and that's laid the groundwork for us, the L10 meetings, and that's gone down through the company. So not only does the management team have it's called an L10 meeting, but it's a 1.5 hour meeting every week. The subgroups do too, the office people and the shop people. I'm glad we're 3 years into this because we're solid on that. So now that we're solid on that and understand how important easy, streamlined, quick, targeted communication is, that's helped us to be more communicative during this time. And the first thing we did right out of the bucket, which was Jonathan's idea, is it's a Teams meeting every morning at 8:30 with the office and Frank, who runs the shop. And it takes 20 minutes. We run down where's sales, where's project management, where's drafting, where's the shop. Our admins on there and our accountants on there, they speak up too. Boom, we laugh, we have fun, we tell jokes, and then we hang up every single day. And we thought it'd last a month, and here we are. It's 7 months, 8 months, whatever it's been. So that helps. And then I've started having check-in meetings with my management team. So I started with Jonathan, and we've been doing it for a while now, and it's every Tuesday afternoon. And we'll each write down what we want to talk about, and this is what we learned at EOS. You write it down, you discuss it, you troubleshoot it, IDS is called, identify, discuss, and solve, and then we're done. And so I recently started that with everyone on the management team. And I think it's a connection where I can just listen. I have more on my list with some people than others, and that's helped a lot. So they don't feel like they don't want to bother me. They don't want to bring me into the problems. And I'm trying very hard to stay out of the trenches and just stay above it, but also guide. And yeah.
Wow. And then when I think about what you're talking about, what would you say you learned in 2020? I mean, you've learned a lot over the years, but what are some of your key takeaways from 2020?
That relationships are so important, with our vendors, with our customers, with each other, to really know that together we can get through this. And everyone's pretty mellowed, even our cutthroat general contractors that we have as clients. Sometimes I think we all see through more of a singular eye now than we ever have. I learned that I can be away from the office and it's not going to fall apart. That we can go on vacation next month for 2 months and everything's going to be just fine. Mm-hmm. And I'm not as indispensable as I thought I was, but I'm still needed. And that's a good place for my own headspace.
That's a very good space. Relationships, with COVID and other people I've talked with said there was an increased tension that came about, not only because of COVID, but because of politics. How have you been able to stay so mindful of the importance of relationships when the tension has gotten as high as it has sometimes, and even with some of your own employees and people you know who can almost start fights in a way within your shop? So how have you dealt with that while still maintaining that respect for relationships?
You know, we're so small, really. We have 20 people, including me, and one bad apple or one toxic personality or one toxic discussion can just take everyone down, even if some of us are at home. The COVID, I think we just need to keep them in our minds and to help our people understand that we've got their backs and we understand that there's stressors and it's non-quantifiable. To be there, to listen. And I have Jonathan going out every single day and just, he can't hug. I used to hug him. You can't hug anymore, but just touch base, not even about business, every single day. On COVID, on the politics, that has, I think it's been a problem, but at the same time, we did put out something that said they can't wear political shirts or caps in the office. They wear uniforms anyway, but they'll put a political shirt on underneath, and we ban that just because there's no place for it in our shop. It is so polarized, and personally, I won't discuss it. I just won't. And I think that we've got a handle on that. But yes, you could cut it with a knife, the tension in our world right now, and we can't tolerate it in a small shop like ours.
One of my last questions for you is, how do you stay fired up? How do you stay positive? You have a lot of pressures on your shoulders right now. You have family health issues. You have all the things you've just shared with us. But how do you stay charged up?
I love what I do. I love this business. You know, if I could do it for another 20 years, I would, but I can't. So I want to leave it in good hands. It doesn't feel like I own a business. It doesn't feel like I go to work every day. It's just who I am. And that's typically, I think, having studied entrepreneurship a little bit more, that's how people get started. They just love what they do. And if I could, I'm 67, I'd keep working for as long as I could. My husband has Alzheimer's, so, you know, his needs become more and more, but I'm finding ways to work around it. And you have to find joy in your life every day when you wake up, and gratitude. And we all have a lot to be thankful for. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what keeps me going.
It does. And I think that's a really good point about how you start your day.
Mm-hmm.
Betsy, is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't, or that you would like to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, I just want to say thank you for joining us today and for sharing really interesting points. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I also want to thank our sponsor today, the Platinum Group, which for 40 years has helped companies during turbulent times. If your company needs help or would appreciate a second opinion, give them a call at 952-829-5700. You can also learn more online at theplatinumgrp.com. Also, if you would like to sponsor one of these one-take interviews or suggest someone to be interviewed, please let me know by either calling me at 763-567-9241 or emailing me just at dalekirshner@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on One Take.